Today we are going to learn about the element of art, color. In class we're looking at a PowerPoint and we are going to complete this color study guide, which you should have out. This is in your manila folder in your art kit. There is also one attached to the assignment if you need to print one out and you lost yours. So let's get started. So the element of art we're going to talk about today is color. Color is the element of art that is produced when light striking an object is reflected back to the eye. To see color, you need to have light. When light shines on an object, some colors bounce off of the object and some are absorbed by it. The only colors we see are the colors of light that are reflected off of an object. So here we have, our light source shining light on this red apple. The colors we see are the red reflected rays and the others are absorbed by the object itself. White light. The sun's rays contain all of the colors of the rainbow mixed together, and that makes white light. So when white light passes through a prism, it separates the colors of the spectrum into what we know as the basic color spectrum, forms our color wheel. So let's get started with our actual color study guide. Hue is the actual name we give to a color. So on your study guide, where it says hue is the actual name we give to a color. And then an example would be like blue or red. So you need to list some examples there. And so we use the word hue interchangeable with the word color. Franz Marc was a German expressionist painter and printmaker. His work was characterized by these bright primary colors, the stark simplicity, and a profound sense of emotion. Marc gave an emotional meaning or purpose to the colors he used in his work. Blue represented masculinity and spirituality. Yellow represented feminine joy. And red depicted the sound of violence. So if we're talking about this painting, the hue of the horse is blue. The hue of these hills are red. The hue of the sky is yellow and blue. We simply replace the word color with hue. Value is the lightness or darkness of a hue. Value is important for defining forms and creating the illusion of space. Value creates the illusion of light with these light highlights and shadows and makes drawings look dimensional. So value is the lightness or darkness of a hue. And if any time you need to pause this video, please do. I'm going to continue. Intensity is the brightness or dullness of a hue. So let's write that. Is the brightness or dullness of a hue. And here's what that means. Here we have our pure colors. We have a bright blue, a bright yellow, and when we add things like white with them, we mute them out or tone them down and mute their intensity. So here's our blue mixed with white. We have this pale blue, our pale yellow. It's not as bright and intense. The same thing happens if we add black. So here we have that blue with some black mixed into it, and here we have it mixed with the yellow, so muting that down. Anytime we are adding to a bright and pure color, we are typically taking away its purity and its intensity. So intensity is the brightness or dullness of a hue. Now we're going to start talking in color schemes. They are groupings of colors based on an organizational system. These schemes are based on their placement on the color wheel, with some schemes also using black and white. There are practical reasons that we use these color schemes in our everyday lives. And it might have to do even with, you might paint and decorate using shades and tints of cool colors to make a room feel cool, restful, and serene. And here we see cool colors, blues, greens, and some violets, making the room very relaxed and serene. So primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. These colors cannot be mixed from any other colors. They're found in nature. We buy them already prepared in art materials like paint, and we make every other color on the color wheel with primary colors. So on our study guide, primary colors cannot be mixed from any other colors. They are red, yellow, and blue. So red, yellow, blue is the primary crew. So Piet Mondrian was a Dutch painter who is regarded one of the greatest artists of the 20th century. He's most famous for his abstract paintings that did not depict recognizable things such as objects or people. Instead, his abstractions used simple geometric shapes and color. He thought beauty came from simplicity, and he eventually limited his palette to the three primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, and then he used neutral colors, black, white, and gray. And this is one of his paintings to the left, Composition A. Primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. Now, primary colors mix together to make secondary colors. Secondary colors are violet, orange, and green. They are the secondary team, and we make them by mixing a primary plus a primary. So if we mix red and yellow, we get orange. If we mix blue and red, we get violet, and if we mix yellow and blue, we get green. So here are our primaries on the color wheel. If we mix yellow and red, we're getting orange. If we mix yellow and blue, we get green, and if we mix red and blue, we get violet. And it's really important that the colors appear in that order. So a secondary color is made by mixing two primary colors. They are violet, orange, and green. So intermediate colors are these free-floating colors. They don't sit on the two triangles. They sit in between the primary and the secondary color, and they take the names of the two colors they sit between. So the color between yellow and orange is yellow-orange. The color between yellow and green is yellow-green. And the primary name always comes first because it is considered to be dominant and more important. Okay, so intermediate colors are made by mixing a primary and a secondary. And really, we need to know that that's a primary and secondary that sit next to each other or adjacent. So a primary and a secondary that sit next to each other. And there are 6 of them. So we've got yellow-green, blue-green, blue-violet, red-violet, red-orange, and yellow-orange. So you're going to pick 2 examples to list on here. I'm going to pick yellow-green and red-violet. Complementary colors are located directly across from each other on the color wheel. When mixed together in the right proportion, complementary colors make neutral gray. So we're talking if we cut straight across, so we're going to forget the triangles, anything that takes this circle and cuts it in half. So red and green, orange and blue, yellow and violet are the basic pairs. The intermediate colors can be paired directly across, but we're going to worry just about the major pairs. So complementary colors are located across on the color wheel. When mixed together, complementary colors make a neutral gray. We'll talk about it in just 1 minute. So the examples are red and green, blue and orange, and yellow and violet. Now, the good thing about complementary colors are, because they sit opposite on the color wheel, is that when we use them next to each other, they are really bright because they're opposites on the color wheel, and the colors pop against each other. So teams like, the Ravens, who use yellow and violet, sports teams make use of how eye-catching complementary colors are. However, if we mix them together, we get neutral gray. And it usually takes more of the lighter value and less of our darker value to hit that neutral gray. But together, next to each other, exciting for our eyes, mixed together, grayed out. So complementary colors being opposites on the color wheel, they are the farthest away from each other. Putting these opposites next to each other creates a great contrast and produces a pop of color that excites our eyes. So here we're looking at a piece of work where somebody is using acrylic mosaic tiles, and we're seeing blues and oranges and light blue, dark blue. We see a yellow orange in here, different values of red, orange, and orange. And the two next to each other really pop against each other. Analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So any three in a row, and they share things in common. So like yellow, yellow, green, and green all share yellow in common, because we mix yellow and blue to make green. So they all have yellow as a base. So red, red, violet, and violet all have red as their base, because red and blue make violet. So analogous colors are pleasing to the eye and generally pretty soothing. So these are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. And an example would be like yellow, yellow, green, and green. Okay, that's the first page. So here we see a Vincent van Gogh painting. He was a Dutch post-impressionist painter. He's known for using striking colors, visible brush strokes, and contoured forms in his work. He communicated mood and feelings through his use of color. The sunflowers that we see him painting here had significant meaning to him. They communicated gratitude. And here we see him using yellow, yellow orange, and yellow green. Yellow in all of them, but they sit three in a row on the color wheel. So they are analogous colors. Cool colors, blue, green, and violet, are often associated with water, sky, and foliage. So we're going to put in here water and sky, and cool colors are blue, green, and violet. Cool colors tend to recede back in space. They don't reach out and grab us from a piece of work, and they're usually soothing and calming. Here we see Claude Monet. He was a French Impressionist painter, and he painted quickly using vibrant colors, trying to capture the effects of light on his subjects, and he mostly painted a lot of things outdoors. He actually built this pond and planted the water lily strategically. He painted over 250 paintings of these water lilies, showing how light at different times of day affected how we see the color of things. And here we have almost all cool colors. We see a few pops of pink in here, but it has been toned down with some white. But otherwise, blues, greens, and violets. Warm colors, red, orange, and yellow, are associated with the sun and fire, and they tend to come forward in an artwork. So warm colors are colors associated with sun and fire. They are red, orange, and yellow, and are generally more active for our eye. They pop forward in a piece of work, and the cool colors tend to recede back. Georgia O'Keeffe was an American artist known for her paintings of enlarged flowers and New York skyscrapers and New Mexico landscapes. She was fascinated by nature, whether it be plants and flowers, bones and skulls, or the desert landscape. She had a unique way of seeing the world in her paintings, and she simplified natural shapes and forms. And here we see a painting of a flower. This is an up-close depiction of a red canna using warm colors, red, orange, and yellow. So when we see warm colors and cool colors together, we're seeing the warm colors, the reds, oranges, and yellows, come toward us. The cool colors are generally receding into the background, so the greens, the violet, and the blue are receding back as these warm colors come out and pop to us. Geoffrey Smart was an Australian-born painter, known for his paintings of urban landscapes that have quirky and playful illusions. Here we're just looking really at the warm and cool colors, although I do wonder what that guy's doing on his balcony. So neutral colors are black, white, and gray. Neutral colors are black, white, and gray. And if you're an interior decorator, brown. But for us, neutral colors are black, white, and gray, and there's two ways to make a gray. One is simply by mixing black plus white, and the other way would be by mixing complementary colors. Complementary colors are those ones across on the color wheel. So if we mix yellow and violet, we're going to get that neutral gray. Red and green, we're going to get that neutral gray. Blue and orange, we're going to get that neutral gray. So if we mix complementary colors, or simply by mixing black and white. And here we actually have a tree painted by Piet Mondrian, and it is black, white, and gray, and has been abstracted. Here we have a photograph by Ansel Adams. He was a landscape photographer, an environmentalist known for his black and white images of the American West. When he's 12, he received his first camera during a visit to Yosemite National Park. He worked diligently to capture the best light and clarity within his landscapes, and he was constantly experimenting with new techniques. And he was fantastic at getting like these very, very light values and these very, very dark values, and most of the time naturally without, today we could use all kinds of filters and do things to change the values from light and dark, and he was able to wait it out and catch the light at the right time to create these lights and darks. Okay, so now we're going to talk about shades, tints, and tones. A shade is a hue or color plus black. That makes a shade. A tint is a hue or color plus white, and a tone is a hue plus gray. So a tint is a hue plus white. And we remember that because there's an I in tints. In shades is a hue plus black. And think about if we wear shades, right? Everything becomes darker. And if we think about there's an A in shades, there's an A in black. Okay, that's how I remember those. And a tone is a hue plus gray. These are sort of muddied out colors. So a tone is a hue plus gray. So the last concept we're going to learn about color is monochromatic. So mono means one, chroma is the Greek word for color. A monochromatic color scheme is any shades, tints, or tones of one hue. And here we have the tragedy painted by Pablo Picasso during his blue period. And of course he's painted it in all different shades, tints, and tones of blue. So monochromatic is using any shades, tints, or tones of one hue. Using any shades, tints, or tones of one hue. So that would be like blue mixed with any amount of black, white, or gray. Okay. So here we have another monochromatic color scheme. This is an artist who uses glass in her studio, and she's set up a room with all different values of green and with the light coming through from the outside. And I believe it's probably plants out there. We are seeing all different shades, tints, and tones of green. Let's just review. So now we're going to color this color wheel. First, let's label it and color all of the colors that we actually have in our box of color pencils. So here's how I want you to label it. Here we're going to have red, yellow, and blue. They're the primary crew. Red and yellow mix to make orange. Yellow and blue mix to make green. Red and blue mix to make violet. Now, the rest of the colors on this wheel label themselves, as long as we put the solid circle color, which is the primary, first and then dash to the green. So between yellow and green, we have yellow dash green, so yellow green. Between blue and green, we have blue, because it's the primary, and then green. Between blue and violet, we have blue, violet. Between red and violet, we have red, violet, because red is the primary. Between orange and red, we have red, orange. And between orange and yellow, we have yellow, orange. So first label your color wheel. And then we'll get out our colored pencils. We're just going to use our basic set. And let's start first by putting red into here. We've got red, yellow. I usually go around the edges first, make sure I fill, and then I can go up and down. So there's my red, my yellow, and blue. I'm going to use my darker, so if you have the same color pencils that I have, I'm going to use my darker blue in here. Nice and heavy. Red, yellow, blue is the primary crew. Now, we've got violet, orange, and green. Violet, orange, and green, so I'm going to use my violet down here. You are going to be submitting this, so make sure you're doing this with me. Violet, orange, and green, and I'm going to use the darker of the two. So violet, orange, and green are the secondary team. Now, to make the rest of these colors, we are going to mix colors together. So let's start with red and orange. And what we're going to do first is put down a layer of orange. So I'm using sort of like medium pressure in here. And then I'm going to layer the red, a layer on top, medium pressure, and then the last step will be to go back in and mix one more layer with the orange, and that is our red-orange. Top layer is always like a nice heavy layer. So there's our red-orange. Okay, between my yellow and orange, this is going to be yellow-orange, so I'm going to start with a layer of yellow. I'm going to do a light layer of orange on top. And go back in heavy with yellow. There's my yellow-orange. Now I'm going to do yellow-green, and I'm going to use a layer of yellow first. And for this, I'm going to use the light green and do a light layer of green on top. Nice and neat. And I'll go back and add a layer of yellow to mix. Okay. Now for blue-green, I'm actually going to use the light blue, so I'm going to put a layer of that down first. and I'll mix some green with it. Light layer of green. And then I'll go back to my blue and do a heavy layer of blue to mix. This is the light blue. Should be a blue-green. It's almost like a turquoise color. Just making sure I'm nice and even. Alright, for my blue-violet, I'm going to use the dark blue. I'm going to put a layer of blue down first. And then I'm going to do a light layer of violet. And then I'm going to go back to my blue to mix. So a heavy layer of blue on top. I may add a little bit more violet just to even it out. There's my blue-violet. Now if you have a pack of color pencils that has these colors, you certainly can use that. And last is my red-violet. I'm going to put first a layer of red. I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. So I'm going to do a layer of red. I'm going to do a layer of this pink. And then I'm going to do a light, very light layer of violet. And then I'm going to go back to my pink and do a heavy layer. Pink is just red plus white. I just think this gives us a better red-violet. Okay? Now, we have completed our 3 pages. So we have our first page with hue, value, intensity, primary, secondary, intermediate, complementary, and analogous. You need to make sure you have every answer there. We did cool colors, warm colors, neutral colors, tints, shades and tones, and monochromatic. And then we colored our color wheel. You will be photographing and submitting your color wheel into the assignment. And then you're done for today.